director of Hawaii Meals on Wheels, so it's appropriate that we're talking about Carl and food and meals and so forth. But I met Carl, well, first of all, I should say that the last time I saw Carl was about 2 weeks before he passed away. And he was, as he always had been, and I had not seen him, you know, I saw him intermittently at our Mutual Hawaiian Civic Club meetings with Lynette, Kalei Maile Ali'i. But I really had not engaged or seen him since the very beginning of the 70s. And so that's what I want to talk about. In 1971, we occupied Kalama Valley. And some may say that was the advent of the Hawaiian Renaissance movement, the Hawaiian sovereignty movement. And I'm going to, in the style of Carl and Jade's discussion about Calvinism, take a little bit of dialectic exception to what Gary Kubota said when he said, we were two Asians trying to find an identity and taking an unpopular stand. The backdrop of Kalama Valley was 10 years of the civil rights movement. Carl took his life into his hands when he went to register voters, where people were roundly killed, not only for being African American, but for supporting them. It had evolved to a movement not only of militancy and consciousness. Organizations like the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords Organization, the Chamorro movement were alive and well. And so was the anti-war movement, huge Vietnam anti-war movement. In Hawaii, John Kelly was saving our surf, along with hundreds of thousands of young surfers to protect the shoreline. And Kalama Valley represented a lot of that. And so I will take exception with Gary when he says it was an unpopular stand, because it is my belief that no one person makes history, that the masses make history. And I think that Carl understood this in a very deep way, because he was not one for being the guy in the front or being real kantaranish and saying, you know, like, I'm, you know, the guy, you guys gotta follow me. He was someone who always had a very love, happy, childlike quality, always laughing. My last memory of him is him sitting in his bed, my 88-year-old mother, who is very makuli and has dementia, sitting in the corner, and Kyle tried to speak to her in Okinawan, and my mom trying to speak to Kyle in Hawaiian. Because unbeknownst to them, Carl was much more fluent in Okinawan when my mother is much more fluent in Hawaiian. So it's a very interesting, very associative kind of situation. But Carl always seemed to be in that kind of state, very childlike and questing. But what I want to talk about him the most is this, is people often think that movements are built on romanticism and a lot of glory and a lot of posturing, but movements are also built on a lot of behind the scenes hard work and a lot of sacrifice. And in Kalama Valley, we kind of were at George Santos's pig farm, which meant that the pigs had to get fed, and when you have a whole bunch of people flocking into a place, somebody got to use the bathroom, and one small cottage with one toilet is not going to accommodate hundreds of people pitching tents and eating and so forth. So what Carl did was, based on his experiences as a non-combatant in Vietnam, he had experience with pitching camp, and so he dug the latrines. And he taught us all how to dig latrines, because, you know, you eat, you also have to go through all the life processes, and so you need movement. So he was the guy that was in there, also scooping up all of the opala and using it to make fertilizer, but he was also one of the 3 or 4 people that were digging the ground up and planting food. And he was always somebody who would not only come to the meeting and participate, or come to the study group sessions, or come to the Hawaiian Civic Clubs and participate by bringing food, but he was also one of those guys that always stayed to wash the dishes. And so movements are always made of those who organize those very, very seemingly menial tasks, but they are actually the most noble tasks, because they're tasks that have to do with getting the job done. And I think that everyone here that knows Carl would agree that getting the job done is extremely important. And another thing that I want to say is that I think that he was always childlike and happy, because he was always a lifelong learner. always questing for truth, always questing for, okay, what is the deal here? Is it, can I research this to find this out? He was a great researcher, as I'm sure Pota Waini would say. He researched, he learned languages because he had an intellectual quest. And I think he also grappled with what formed him and what he believed in. And so I'll end, since we are in a church, by saying that I think that one of the scriptures that was very close to him is the scripture that many of the UCC ministers use and that liberation theologists use, and it is Micah 6, which is, do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. And I think this is what Carl would have believed in this setting.